I know there were many rejections in the fall 2024, and many people are reaching out to me. It's like, Yuri, my visa was rejected in fall 2024. I'm going to go for spring season. How do we improve our chances?
A common reason for denial is that you're not making sense to the consular officer.
It's because of my university I got rejected. How much truth is there?
When students go to the window, they're like, I changed my subject. My opinion is that might be a red flag and you're complicating your case.
So is it true that spring semester has a higher rejection than fall semester?
You could just be simply, perhaps I didn't articulate myself well enough last season. I'm going for this course. And if the consular officer notices that you changed your subject, at that point you can defend why.
I don't know if it is a myth or not. I got rejected in Mumbai. Now I'm going to go to Chennai because there's a more acceptance rate, or vice versa. Is that true?
Previous denial is a really big deal. And so be honest with yourself about where you're at. If you have no work experience and your finances are weak and you're not going to a competitive school, but you're going to an undergrad institution, that might be a tough approval in a place like India.
Before we dive into all the strategies and stories that we're going to discuss in this podcast, let me ask you this. Do you have a clear job hunting strategy to get an internship or a full-time job? Most people don't, and it's costing them opportunities. I've helped over 1,100 students with their strategies through my ultimate job hunting course.
And trust me, I'm not even kidding. I could see so many recruiters viewing my profile.
And it's been the best investment I've ever made.
The content is incredibly practical, filled with tips and strategies that make you stand out to recruiters.
It was one of the best courses that I have done till date.
This course covers everything that you need to stand out. You will get ultimate resume course, you will get ultimate LinkedIn course, networking strategy, access to 1,100 plus job seekers for support, and personal support from me through WhatsApp group. I will walk you through every single step that you need with real examples and the tools that will give you an edge. I don't want you to miss any other opportunity to land your next job or an internship. So check the link in the description. And now I will let you enjoy the podcast. All right, let's do this again, Yvette. If you don't mind giving an intro for people who might have not watched our popular videos before, if you can.
People have been just waiting for this. I don't know what you're saying, Yuri. It's been so long.
No, you are like very popular in this space. So
no, I text message you. You're like, yeah, for sure. Next month, I'm eating ice cream right now. I'm busy. So I'm like, all right, the summer, busy time for Yuri. So now that it's fall, we can.
Yes, we can do it. And spring season is coming up, so people are wanting to crack their F-1 visa interview. But before we do that, let's do a quick intro, who you are, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. My name is Yvette Bunsel. I'm a former U.S. consular officer. I worked for the State Department for 5 years, primarily in India. Before that, I worked for the Department of Homeland Security. I wanted to bring some transparency and to give visa applicants around the world some understanding of the visa process. So I started this company called Udeti. You can check it out on udetivisa.com. I have other former and retired consular officers doing primarily visa interview preparation on a wide variety of visa categories. So
I also want to mention our course is also live. Our course is with Yvette. So we'll put the link in the description. Plus, if you do end up going with Yvette for one-on-one counseling, also, the code is there in the description as well. But for rejections, what are the common rejections? Like, you have experienced it and you have seen the patterns. Obviously, you've been working in this field. So these are the red flags that I see, that common rejection. This is why it happens.
So common reasons for denial. So you see Indian students, and then you have African students, and every other country and continent in between. And really, whether it's an inability to articulate fully, or maybe not putting your best foot forward, if you're an Indian student, maybe downplaying or not speaking concisely about your background, or sometimes in Nigeria and other African countries, they throw everything at the consular officer in hopes that something sticks. So each visa applicant kind of has their own downfall a little bit. But what they have in common is that they're not making a holistic story about where they were and where they're going in a concise and articulate way. So this is a very short interview, regardless of where you're interviewing around the world. You might get a couple extra minutes here and there, depending on the country, if it's a slower post, but you need to give the consular officer a good idea of who you are as a person in an authentic way, not just throwing anything at the consular officer in hopes that it sticks, not just having a rehearsed answer, but having an answer that makes sense for you. So one thing I would advise is not to go on Reddit and Quora and try to pick up all these different pieces of advice to see, oh, this person got their visa approved, so I'm just going to say what they said. The common reason for denial is that you're not making sense to the consular officer. So your story, why you want to get a master's degree or undergraduate degree, really needs to make sense for you. So I hope that it's kind of a broader. We're not nitpicking, right? Like you didn't do this or you didn't do that. Let's zoom out and talk about the big picture here.
Yeah, and I definitely want to like dig deeper, but I love that you forgot, you mentioned Quora and Reddit, but you forgot WhatsApp. That is a big place as well. People look at WhatsApp. This was my experience, and then they just copy paste their answers. So I'm talking about India because I did my F-1 visa interview in Mumbai specifically. My interview was like maybe less than a minute, 60 seconds, and few questions, like 3-4 questions. In 60 seconds, how do you try to explain the big picture without like not sounding that I'm so fully rehearsed, and explain the story?
So I think that you can go big in your rehearsal. So you write down all the things about you, and then you narrow it down into what is a concise story that makes sense. You can try to do that. So write all the things about you, who you are, what you were doing, and then can you pine it down? So it's actually a preparation approach, and it's just probably one of many. So once you get the big picture by writing it out and journaling and thinking about it, it's a lot easier to make it a concise, short answer without having it be rehearsed. And then you can have different things in your back pocket, different parts of your profile that's a strength. That could be a strong GPA or multiple admissions into universities or a great project that you worked on. And based on the questions that the consular officer asks, maybe you can throw in some of those strengths. In addition, try to have a really strong opening. Your first question is going to be like, why this university? Or why do you want to study in the United States? Or why an F-1 visa now? So maybe give them a little bit of context. Hey, my name is Yvette. I did X for a couple of years. Now I'm pursuing this degree. So a little bit of an introduction. Maybe we can give them a better example of a good introduction, but a very concise and short and powerful introduction. You can try to take control of the interview from the very beginning. That was a lot of information. So.
No, yeah. And one of the question I was going to ask you, is there a specific question that visa interview officer is like thinking that this is the question I want to see how they're going to perform, and then based on that I'll reject? Or is it like overall, like have they already made up their mind on the first question? And if they have, then will they just continue on? Or if they have not, then like I'm just curious to like understand the psychology of how they're thinking question by question.
So we've talked about this in other videos. I had to adjudicate 120 visas in a 3.5 hour span. I wanted to get you out of my window as fast as possible. So your visa interview was very quick, probably because you impressed them from the very first thing that you said. Similarly, if you say something that is completely a rehearsed answer that is unimpressive, the consular officer may reject you right away, because in my experience and in their experience, once somebody is on a script, it's really hard for them to get off a script. So the consular officer almost gives up on you. It's like, I'm going to this university because it's the most ranked university, the best in the world, and I'm going to go see Dr. Professor X. The consular officer is like, I don't have time to suss out the real answer here. This person can't even give me anything to work with. I'm going to refuse them. So that's not for everyone, but say that they may ask you really quickly about your finances, and again, that answer is also short. It doesn't really give very strong finances. You're giving a one-word answer, and in that case, now you're 0 for 2, and
Yeah.
the consular officer needs to move on, right?
Yeah. So it's the story that matters the most. It sounds like it from like overall answer. So I remember they asked me why Chico State, and first of all they made a fun. It's like, oh, you're going to party, and I didn't know that it was a party school. So I was like, no, I don't. And so it's like, so why are you going? And then I explained my answer that like one my answer was really that I was able to meet Chico State like officers in the education fair, and one of the things they told me is that we have very less Indian. They said all the good things about Chico, the town, but they have less Indian population, which is like 6 to 7 students, and that is what impressed me because that will help me get out of my comfort zone and explore other culture. And that was the answer that I gave, and that was the only question they asked me after that. They didn't ask me anything, but it tells even though I didn't explain like who I am and all of that, it kind of still tells what I'm looking after in a way. How would you have assessed me?
All right. So before answering directly, I want to say that if you were to write on Quora or Reddit or do a video, which you've done so many videos, and maybe I'm going to say something controversial, but maybe you telling people that answer could be the reason they get a visa denial. Do you want to know why?
Yeah.
The reason why is because if they copy your answer, they say, I learned about X university because I went to a career fair and they told me, say something unique about that university. Now, your answer got you to pass because it was genuine. You literally were at a career fair. They told you this thing and you're telling the consular officer. The consular officer can see it in your eyes. They can see it they can see your vibe. They can tell that really happened to you and it really drove you to apply to Chico State. Another person copying that answer like it worked for Yudi and it didn't, that story isn't real, the consular officer is going to pick up that it's a lie. And something is wrong to the consular officer. And so that individual may get a denial because of that. So that's the difference. It's not what you said necessarily. It's because it was real to you.
This is another question I keep getting asked. It's because of my university I got rejected. How much truth is there? Like, is there universities that they choose and because of that they get direct rejects, or are there like university like Purdue? Like I'm assuming this that Purdue is a very well-known university. You wouldn't get rejected because of Purdue. But what do you think is the truth to the university's brand? Yeah.
I think that if you have researched or had that experience at a career fair or did any sort of independent collection of information for Purdue or any other university, that you will find things that you're genuinely connecting and could explain to the consular officer why you selected that university over other universities. So that should translate at the visa window if you've done some prep work. Now, your selection of university, it shouldn't really matter. However, there are some universities that are doing a lot of recruiting, especially in India. And if they're not as selective, consular officers may see applicants at the visa window, for example, that don't speak English that were admitted into that university. And so when another applicant, and then that university may develop a little bit of a reputation of admitting basically anyone. So this can be still overcome though. So yes, there is a component of that at play. So I would say to be on the safe side, if you have maybe your finances are not as strong, maybe your grades are not as strong, maybe you don't have a stronger work history, you can be on the safe side and go for a more competitive school. However, with a good answer for why you selected that university, a genuine answer, and a good reason for why you selected that university, especially if it's not as selective, but there's something amazing about that university. They have a specific facility. You have a specific research interest. They have specific design teams, etc. Then it shouldn't matter what school you go to as long as you can talk about it. So I think all of these things are at play and are true at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things I know, we're going to do a separate video on B1, B2, and you helped my family. We did the mock interview, and my brother's situation was not great. And it was fascinating to me how you were able to help prepare him in the same answer that he gave versus how we prepared for that answer, and how we told the story. It's the same information but just told differently. And
Right.
and I truly think that was the game changing, at least hearing from that experience. I recorded that whole experience, so that'll come in the B1 B2 video. But how can someone, like, again, if let's say they don't have a vet in their life, they can, but if they don't, how can they prepare that story and present it? Like, what is it that will impress visa officer if you were to give that answer?
Right. Well, first of all, there's a lot of free resources. We've done other videos. I have a ton of blogs on the Udeti page. Our F1 video is such a low-hanging fruit, you guys. Like, I know it sounds like a sell, but it's like $30. Me and Yudi don't make much off of that video. So if you really don't want to go for a one-on-one consultation, honestly, it's our gift to you because it will really help you prepare. I can go through everything. I mean, I've tried to explain here on this video to have this cohesive answer. But if you really want to prepare, that's such a low-hanging fruit. But really understanding where you've been, where you're going, and why you selected your university, taking all that information, making it into a concise answer, and communicating it at the window. But so that is my answer. But if you've had previous denials before, you really have to feel confident to go back, especially for the spring semester, which notoriously has higher.
So is it true that spring semester has a higher rejection than fall semester?
It is. I mean, I can go through all of the State Department data, but I've done a small project with a business client of mine, and we did see trends that showed that spring semester rejection rates, it's a slightly tougher. Also, if you go for fall semester, rejection rates as the summer goes on become worse and worse. So if you're just 2 weeks away from your start date, that also starts to dip. We can speculate about why all day, and I don't want to put ideas into people's minds. However, sometimes the most prepared applicants do come earlier in the season, and sometimes more competitive programs are offered just in the fall. And, people who have prepared ahead of time, maybe the consular officer is thinking that they're going to be going in the fall, and spring is kind of, why are people going for the spring? Also, people who have been rejected in the fall go in the spring. Those who already have previous refusals are bound to get refused again. So there's all these different small things at play.
Okay, so I do want to, that is why we are making this video, is like people who have gotten rejection now planning to go in spring semester, what do they need to do to justify their case again? I've heard this, again, the Reddit and Quora and WhatsApp agents that teach people how to get F1 visa. You should change the university, you should change the course. That means that you have improved your profile, and now visa officer will be convinced. How true is that? And then, we'll move on to the
Yeah. I love that, and you can give me a myth and then we can talk about it. Okay. Should I change the university and course? It depends. For example, I had a client that changed to a more competitive school in the spring. And the reason being was because he didn't have that I-20 in the fall. And so he's able to explain, what has changed in your profile? I got a more competitive I-20. I think that's perfectly fine. However, you still need to know why you're going to that school. So second, even if you don't change the university, you can still give a very solid answer for the university that you still selected. So it's not necessary to change the university, but you can, but be prepared to be asked why. And if you're completely flip-flopping majors, completely doing a 180 on universities, it can backfire against you if you're changing everything and you can't answer why. So someone who is going for computer science now is all of a sudden going for an MBA program, for example, that could be a problem. That will be a problem unless you can explain why. So just be weary of changes as well. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But let's say I was going for computer science. Now I'm going for MEM, which is engineering management, more technical management program. And I can, if this is genuinely true, that I can explain that last 6 months I've been working in my company and I realized that I have a passion for people and I'm not into someone who can just sit in front of computer and code. That is why this degree helps me get to become the product management and project manager, which is what I went to see my career. Is that a genuine answer? If that is the true reason? Because that is
no, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And I would say that you don't necessarily have to mention that you went from computer science to management. So the problem is that when students go to the window, they're like, I changed my subject. You're like, my opinion is that might be a red flag and you're complicating your case. So for you could just be simply, perhaps I didn't articulate myself well enough last season. I'm going for this course. And if the consular officer notices that you change your subject, at that point, you can defend why. This is different than going to a more competitive school. So for each individual client, it's a different piece of advice that I would give them. For the person that went to a more competitive school because he didn't have that I-20, I did want that to be mentioned up front. So not to confuse people, each individual case is different. And I hope you guys are hearing me, because I'm not going to give you quick answers that is a one size fit all. So you're going to have to listen to this interview and be like, all right, so what works for me?
Yeah. Got it. Another myth, or I don't know if it is a myth or not. I got rejected in Mumbai. Now I'm going to go to Chennai because there's a more acceptance rate, or vice versa. Chennai, there's a high rejection. Mumbai, everybody accepts it, approves it. So I'm going to go to Mumbai. Is that true?
So it used to be that what I was going to say is it used to be that if I saw an applicant shopping around, what I would consider shopping. Okay, so you were rejected in Mumbai. You're from Chennai and you're seeing me in Delhi. I was like, do you have a lot of time on your hands? This was pre-COVID, because I knew that the wait times for every consulate and the embassy is the same, about 30 days pre-COVID. Now, wherever you can get an appointment, you can go. So I feel like consular officers are much more lenient when they see a history of you being at a consulate that's not necessarily where you live. You can use that to your advantage. And if you truly feel like one embassy, and the embassy or any of the consulates is more lenient, like you're hearing on WhatsApp or the rumors, could it be true? I mean, it could be, I guess, anecdotally, until the year statistics come out, or unless we have any concrete data. It really is. They're probably pretty close, I would say, but sometimes one of the consulates or the embassy starts to develop a reputation. And if you start hearing that and you more prefer to go to a consulate that you anecdotally are hearing is doing better, then go for it. I don't think that there is any problem. In the past, it used to look bad, but I think until the visa appointment wait times go down. You can go wherever you feel comfortable. If nothing else, it could be like, it could be good for your psyche. If you think that you're at the easier consulate, maybe you'll have an easier time. So
yeah, you go with that mindset, right? Okay. A lot of time when the visas are rejected, the first question, again, I've heard this, not sure because I've not experienced the rejected visa, is that why do you think your visa was rejected? How do I know? Like, do you get to know? Because they don't tell you why the visa was rejected. They just say, you like, sorry, you have to try next time or something. They give you some slip. But it's 214B typically, unless it's 221G. But how do you answer that question? Like,
so to me, that seems like a very mean-spirited question. I've never asked it myself, but I'm not surprised maybe if other consular officers have asked it. If it comes to you, you can say, perhaps I didn't articulate my school choice well enough. Here's why I'm going to this university. I didn't get a chance to talk about my background. When I was asked about my work experience, I didn't go into detail about XYZ and B project or X, Y, and Z, like very specific things, technical things that maybe you've done at your job. So just take it as an opportunity to highlight yourself. Don't get stuck on the question, whether it's what has changed in your profile. And if nothing's changed, like, what has changed in your profile? Like, perhaps I didn't articulate my school choice well enough. And kind of talk about your profile a little bit more and a little bit deeper, like not to get too hung up on the question.
Okay. If I change, my financial situation has changed now. Before I was going to go through family funds, but now I'm taking a loan. Is that bad, good, neutral?
So as long as you can pay for generally speaking, what has changed in your profile, or sometimes applicants want to say, I don't have a loan anymore, or I have a loan right now. So consular officers can read previous case notes, but you going and starting off the interview talking about this change in finances is not really the strongest way to start an interview. The stronger way would be to explain either your background or why you selected the university. The finance question will come up if the consular officer is intending on issuing. You don't have a lot of time. So I wouldn't say, if the question is, how are you going to fund your education? And the time before you gave a loan and now you want to go into family funds, I would just explain your current finances versus trying to explain what you said last time and your current finances. And if the consular officers said, well, you had a loan last time and now you have family funding, you're like, I had a backup loan last time. However, my finances are strong enough. So that finance answer has to be a really solid answer. And it really shouldn't matter too much what you had said the last time, as long as there's no big discrepancy in the story. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So when you rejected the candidates, did you write for the next visa officer that this is why I'm rejecting?
Yeah. So I would say why I'm rejecting, like either sometimes I would say weak finances. I might not have enough time to say exact details. But I might just say finances not strong enough, or have doubts about finances, or concerns about level of prep, or weak English. So very general. However, some consular officers could be more specific, like they could mention the GPA that you told them, or other small details, or this person's father makes X amount. But more likely, the note is going to be a little bit more general.
Yeah. And the reason I was asking that is the follow-up is now, because you have some notes like weak English or low prep, does that mean now this next new visa officer is going to start there, try to revalidate that, okay, is that problem solved, or is that going to be completely they're going to judge it completely new way?
It really depends on the consular officer. Some consular officers don't even read previous case notes until they're about to issue or deny, or they might make, so if they're planning on denying, it may not make sense for them to go back and reread the previous case notes because that's an extra step, for example. So they may just make their own adjudication decision and then cross-check the previous case notes to make sure there wasn't any real red flags. Some may look at the previous case notes right away and then hone in on what the previous officer thought was a weakness. The process is different, consular officer to consular officer.
Got it. Okay. All right. So finally, I guess I know this is what probably people wants to hear from you. It's like, all right, Yvette, my visa was rejected. I was going to Chico State. They rejected after 3 questions. I don't know. Nothing changed in my profile. I still want to go to Chico State. How can I now convince visa officer that, this, like, I genuinely, I'm a good student and I want to go because of XYZ reason? Like, what to say, how to prep for it?
Right. So you can take the advice on this video of writing something brief about your background, why you're going to the school that you're going to, what makes that school unique. Avoid talking about generalities like professors or ranking, unless the ranking is super high. Be specific when you talk to the consular officer about why that program, why you're passionate about that program. If it's a systems program, why are you passionate about systems? Why you want to go for systems? And rather than saying it's because I want to get a job in this field, like talk about something that you're passionate about, like building something from scratch, or I did this project and it really made me want to go into systems, like, for example. The more specific, the better. And make them understand why this investment is worthwhile for you, why this makes sense for you, the skills that you're going to gain, and then kind of take all that information and communicate it in a concise way. That's the overarching piece of advice. The more realistic advice, and again, guys, I know this is going to sound like a sell, try to do it on your own. But if you're not feeling comfortable, a previous denial is a really big deal. And so be honest with yourself about where you're at. And so, for example, let me cover a couple things. If you have no work experience and your finances are weak and you're not going to a competitive school, but you're going to an undergrad institution, that might be a tough approval in a place like India. You may want to think about going to school in India or considering other options before, and then maybe considering a master's program if you have a lot of weak points going into an undergraduate program. If you feel like maybe you don't have enough work experience, or you want to try for a more competitive school, for example, you can kind of assess what's going on in your interview. If you feel like maybe you're not as qualified as you could be, then can you wait a year and get some solid work experience and improve your answer before going again, especially if you've had like 2 refusals. So a little bit of an assessment. If you feel like, okay, I only had 1 refusal, the consular officer didn't really give me a chance, my finances are solid, I know I have a plan, I know I didn't articulate it well enough, well, then you're a great candidate to give it another go. But you definitely want to try not to get that second refusal. So take my advice, take the advice on these videos, the free blogs. If it's not enough for you, you can start by doing the F-1 webinar, which is really only $30. It's like the cost of
the course. Yeah.
The F-1 visa course that's linked here. It's, if you have issues with finances, it's like not even the cost of a meal in the United States. So at least invest in that. And if you're having more challenges, and book a one-on-one session with a former consular officer so that I can help you prepare and hone your answers. So these are all the different steps and options that I would say people have.
Yeah. Love it. Again, I'll put all the links in the description so people can check out if they want to. And also, if you have any further question, people have any further question on F1 visa, please put it down. Yvette and I are going to try to make more videos. so and if you have any question on a B1, B2, we're going to film that as well. So let us know. And thank you, Yvette. I'm excited. Until our next one.
Keep smiling, keep hustling.
Nice. Amazing.